everyone. Stay tuned to the end of the video if you're interested in finding out information about how to talk with me on a one-on-one basis. Enjoy the video now. Hey folks, welcome to the channel Thinking Theology. I'm Don. I am going to react to some thoughts of Joel Osteen. It's the first time on the channel that I've reacted to him. I've seen him on occasion on television, and my approach, just so you know if you're new, is philosophical. I look at the arguments being made, the assumptions being made, to see if there are gaps in what's being said. So I'm not hardcore dogmatic in any sense, either pro or con. I just say, here are some of the problems with whatever, in this case, Joel Osteen may be saying, and here's where it can make sense. Here's the benefit. So we're going to see what Joel's got to say about anxiety. And one thing I will be looking out for, though, is that theologians, Christian expositors, tend to view life as formulaic. You take this particular verse from the New Testament or sometimes the Hebrew Bible and apply it universally. It applies equally to everybody. And that is not a position I hold. But let's see what he's got to say about the antidote for anxiety.
Well, God bless you. It's great to be with you today, and I want to talk to you today about the antidote for anxiety. We all have opportunities to live anxious and worried about the future and wondering what's going to happen with our children, our finances, our health. There's always something trying to steal our peace. If you watch the news, you hear about inflation, violence, wars, division. A recent article talked about how we're in an epidemic of anxiety. There's never been so much coming against our mental health. But that's not the way we were created to live. The scripture says,
that's also not true. Anxiety, fear, concern about life, worry has existed equally across all spheres. Whether or not, even if you lived on the junk, if you believe in evolution, I'm not saying I do, I'm not saying I don't. I'm saying if. And I speak conditionally in many contexts because that's what argumentation is. But if you're living lions in the, lions or buffaloes or animals, zebras, animals on the plains of Africa, they have fear. There's a survival, and it is ongoing. People, same thing for all of humanity, sickness, disease. Nowadays, we live on average in first world countries above the age of 80. Back then, prior to antibiotics, in so-called first world or advanced countries, the average age worldwide was something like 30, because you'd get a tooth infection and die. People lived in fear and worry. It's a natural occurrence. So let's see where he goes with this, as though there's an antidote for it, which, when I saw the title of this, I knew I would object to it. I just didn't know specifically what I would. So let's see what he says.
Cast all your anxieties on Him. One antidote for anxiety is you have to give it to God. You can't go around carrying everything, trying to figure it all out, living in tomorrow, wondering how it's going to work out. What if my health doesn't improve? And what if my company has layoffs? And this family member did me wrong. I got to fix that. You're weighing yourself down, carrying things you were never meant to carry. That's why you can.
I'll say absolutely wrong about that too. The notion of just taking something that's in your mind that you're concerned about and saying, throw it out there. It's not something that can be thrown out there to say, oh, God, this invisible being is now going to take it and do something with it. That makes us, in some sense, the controller of the universe if I'm worried about the state of my country. So I just take that care and put it there, and that God's going to take care of it. Actually, sometimes that anxiousness, that fear is an indication that you need to do something yourself to make it go away. Let's say you're worried about your finances, but you're only working 20 hours a week. So, well, I'm just going to cast that to God. No, what you do is you put yourself in gear and get to 40 or 50 hours a week, whatever you need to do to get to that point. And this is the notion of, I don't know, God is a spiritual vending machine. is anathema or just antithetical to proper action in life. But let's see where else he goes.
Feel worn out and not able to sleep at night. Do yourself a favor and start casting those anxieties. They're going to come, but if you're going to stay in peace, you have to get good at turning them over to God. The word cast is an action word. When you're fishing, you cast the rod. It's not a complacent, underhand, let me just toss it out there. No, you forcefully swing your arm and aggressively flick your wrist. There's action and energy. In the same way, anxiety is not going to just fall off of you. Worry is not going to go away on its own. You can't just sit back and hope that things will change. You have to do some casting. When thoughts come, what's going to happen with your children? There's so many distractions these days, they're going to probably get in trouble. You can dwell on those thoughts, let them weigh you down, cause them to live anxious, or you can say, no thanks, my children are in God's hands. Father, thank you that you're protecting them, causing them to make good decisions, that as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. You know what you did? You just cast those anxieties on Him.
No, you didn't, because you waffled on that one. Parents are responsible for raising the kids a certain way, but there's a reason people turn out very differently, very uniquely, and it has to do with culture, it has to do with how they're raised, that has to do with their friends, but the idea that somehow God is going to raise them or do these various things to or for or with them, it's fine if somebody has that belief, but the notion that that is an antidote is going to make you actually can be a recipe for greater fear, greater anxiety, because if you don't see the results, which frequently you don't, that you'd like to see in your children or in yourself, then you could become more worrisome that, oh my gosh, I'm not in the will of God. I'm not casting it well enough. I'm not a good enough fisherman, to use his example, to cast that line. It can create greater fear. To me, the better approach in this world is that we're all on the same playing field. Atheist, Christian, Jew, Muslim, everybody is on the same playing field in this world. We're trying to stay alive. We'd like to have some measure of happiness or some measure of something that does give us peace. And we have to do things that will produce, or at least have the greatest chance of producing, a happier or better life. But this idea of, okay, I have these worries, I'm just going to get rid of them. That's not humanly possible. That's not how it works. We have to self-actualize those things. And it can produce a sense of immediate gratitude or immediate tranquility. Okay, I'm not worrying about this now. It's up in God's hands. He's going to do it. But then the next day, your kid is still the same. On occasion, there may be differences in the children, but that happens naturally. That happens in atheist children. That happens in people who are angry at God. Good things and bad things happen to good and bad people in equal measures. All right, let's see where Joel goes from here.
Have you seen the news about the economy, inflation, gas prices? What if things keep going up? What if your business doesn't make it? What if you can't pay your bills? The enemy would love for you to worry about things that are never going to happen. He'd love for you to miss the beauty of this day because you're so anxious about tomorrow. Don't fall.
The problem is these things do happen, and they happen regularly. So what he is saying is that anything to worry about is not legitimized. And they are legitimized because bad things do happen. They happen to each of us. They happen to family members. They happen to people we know. They happen to people we don't know. We see it in the media, whether it's somebody dying or companies laying people up. These are legitimate concerns, but they can motivate you to thinking through what your various options are in the event my company lays people off, or in the event my child has a tooth problem. How do I handle it? Anxiousness or worry or fear is not wrong necessarily. You want things to be in balance. You don't want to be consumed by it to where you're inactive and don't come up with ideas or practical solutions with your spouse, with your friend, to sort of think through what you're going to do in the event. Or even if you live by yourself and don't have friends, that you think through, if this happens, then what am I going to do about it? The notion that I'm just going to say, oh, I'm not going to worry about it, it can be a great inhibitor. It could be a cop-out to you having to put thought into how you're going to handle given situations. Martin Luther King said it very well when he said, few things pain people as much as requiring them to think. All right, let's see how much further we could get into this.
Fall into that trap. God has not failed you in the past, and He's not going to fail you now. My father used to say when I was growing up, if bread goes to $1 a loaf and gasoline to $1 a gallon, God will take care of us.
The problem with that line of thinking about God's provision going up is that it ignores that people actually suffer when these things happen. These are very real consequences. To say, oh, if bread goes from $1 a loaf to $10 a loaf, it won't impact anybody because God will make sure everybody has more, just goes against what we observe. I mean, just study the history of countries, study the history of the Soviet Union, study the history of America. The Depression was very real. And so we can only look to certain successes or where certain people made it through the Depression and so forth, but the suffering was very real. So this is where this line of thinking, it's sort of part and parcel of the prosperity gospel, that no matter what, that God's going to take care of you. It stands in the face of what we see and experience in this world. It's just that simple. All right, I'm going to try to make it a little bit further into this, because I think this actually creates greater anxiety in people. Those who believe in what he is saying, that then they think, oh, I'm not following the formula. I'm not casting it well enough. How do I cast well enough? So you just transfer the anxiety from one, or the concern, let's put it that way, from one realm to another. All right, let's see what he says.
If Daddy could see us now, God is faithful. Let me tell you, if prices go up, the good news is God's provision is going to go up. God is not up in heaven saying, man, I didn't see this coming. I didn't know inflation was going to be this high. God owns it all. He makes streets out of gold. You get stressed looking at the future, anticipating the worst. Higher cost, higher bills. What you're not anticipating is the goodness of God. David said, I was young, now I'm old.
I like the mindset of look at the good things that could happen, right? That I like a lot, because many people, it is true, when we consider the future, that only bad outcomes might happen. That's when you get like uber fearful and then you can't even think. But it's like Thomas Sowell said, that there are no solutions, there are only trade-offs. So if you decide on a particular course of action, you're saying the likelihood of this being better than this other possibility, this other course of action or other courses of action, this one is likely produced a better result. People do it when they consider getting divorced. People do it when they have multiple job offers. People do it when they think, oh, I've got the weekend off. We could go to the shore, or we could go to the lake, or we could stay home. Or you look and say, all right, this is preferable because I think it's going to produce a greater sense of joy, happiness, rest, relaxation, whatever. We make these analyses all the time. Here he's saying, don't just focus on the negative parts of the outcome. There could be good outcomes, but it's going to depend on what you do. It's not going to depend on God being the spiritual vending machine and somehow dumping on occasion these random, what we call blessings on people. It still gets back to, we've got to make the right choices. And when he alludes to or says that God makes streets paved with gold, well, that is a future, in the Bible, that's a future promise. And if you believe that that's what's going to happen, that's fine, but that's in the future. The playing field is still here now. And if you're a hardcore Christian who believes in this, I'm not saying not to, I'm saying that could provide a great deal of hope for people. But if you are, you're still in the same playing field with atheists. And if you consider the atheist to be like the enemy of God or what have you, they still have the same trade-off analysis that you've got to do. If I do this, then this will happen, or this is likely to happen here on planet Earth. So I'm going to end it there. There's a lot more that he's got going on, but it kind of went the way I suspected. I mean, I didn't know the exact thoughts he would have, but everybody's on the same playing field. If an atheist runs a red light or a Christian runs a red light, the officer is going to treat you the same. It's pretty simple. That you can't say, oh, look, I'm a Christian. God gets me out of running red lights. It doesn't work that way. It has to do with your own actions and your treatment of other people, whether they like you or not, and so forth. So anyway, all right, guys, I may complete this more in the future. I'm not sure, but I'm going to jump from different reactions to different reactions and analyze them. I hope that helped. Leave your comments. I'll see you on another video. Have a great day and keep thinking theology. Hey everyone, this is just a video to let you know that I'm available on a one-on-one basis for personal coaching or for conversations about theological topics. Could be relationships you're having with somebody who's a bit toxic in their faith. Maybe they're over the top. Maybe you're having questions, maybe doubts, or just wondering about your church or whatever. The theology obviously covers a broad range and spectrum of issues. So if you need or want to speak with somebody about these topics in a non-judgmental way, non-confrontational way, I'm available on a one-on-one basis. I've been doing this for many years, not just with theology, with executive business coaching. I work in personal spaces with people who are going through a divorce. And this is not about establishing your faith or challenging you on faith. This has nothing to do with your particular denomination, faith, religion. This is about relationships and how to process some of the nuances of your faith that you may not have considered that may ease your mind about how you're thinking about things or approaching things. So my normal fee for executive business coaching is $250 per hour, but for theological topics, I've kept it at $95 per hour. And some folks may even need special consideration on that fee. And we could discuss that if you have financial hardship. And our conversations take place by phone, and we'll make a lot of progress in a short period of time. So don't hesitate to reach out. I'm very approachable. I've been doing this for many years. My direct email is thinkingtheologytoday@gmail.com. That comes directly to me. And it's scrolling across the screen now, but it's also in the description box below. So if you're interested in talking with me on a one-on-one basis, that's how to do it. All right, folks, have a great day. I'll see you on another video. Keep thinking theology.